Where like Irish people, we talk, we like to talk a lot, but at the same time we say very little, you know. There's lots of kind of performative stuff that gets put out, but it can take you 5 or 6 years to figure out the meaning of an Irish conversation. You know what was actually being said. It's uh, it's um, it's strange. Like we do talk. The thing about Ireland is for a lot of the year it's a small, wet, and very grey place, and it's got the ideal conditions for a nation of fabulists, for people who need to make up tall stories, because if they don't, they'll go nuts and they won't survive. So but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Irish writing in fiction on the page as well definitely has an oral quality. We are inclined towards particular kind of rhythms and ways of speech that transfer in kind of attractive ways to the written word and to the page. I think. Yeah, we're just a bunch of old hams, really, who like to perform our work. Sure, it's I guess because my work contains lots of talk, lots of dialogue. So people sometimes say to me that they presume that I like hear the characters in the first instance, and actually that's not always the case. Very often, when I'm thinking about characters initially, I'm thinking of how they hold themselves physically, how they kind of present themselves to the world. Like very often, I'm writing about um, Irish characters, Irish men from kind of working class backgrounds, and their physical posture can be very kind of defensive, very kind of side on and defensive. And there are hundreds of years of weather and politics and class in that kind of stance. When I thought first about Morris and Charlie, they're much more kind of open in the way they present themselves to the world, because they're from the city of Cork, which is a very particular atmosphere. It's quite superior. Cork people love their city and consider themselves slightly elevated type. So Charlie and Morris have, even though they're fading and they're past their best, they still have quite a broad-shouldered and sort of confident way of holding themselves. And when you can see how your characters present themselves physically to the world, you hear them much more easily. You can start to hear them after you can see them. So it's very often in the first instance, I'm thinking about what they look like, how they dress, what they're presenting, what kind of attitude they're presenting when they walk into a room or when they walk out in the world. I find, once that's relatively clear in my mind's eye, that the rest follows on from there. I tend to let the characters not so much run away with the story, but I let them kind of dictate where I'm kind of going on a morning to morning, day to day kind of basis with it. I remember once, as a kind of wannabe writer in my early 20s, or an emerging writer even, reading something that the great Don DeLillo said in an interview. He said that he was perfectly prepared to let the sound of a sentence dictate its meaning. What he was saying essentially was he would let the rhythm of the prose dictate where the story would go, and that struck me as kind of revelatory at the time, and it seemed to be close to the way I could see myself operating, and I do so. I think every story you write has a kind of an innate melody or rhythm. It's kind of like a musical form, and you're just trying to hear it as you go along, sentence to sentence. The ear, again, been your primary tool. I use and overuse that quote. I think it's the sense that when men are talking to each other, there are always kind of little secret power tussles going on just underneath the surface of the talk. It's what's not been said in the conversation and what's just under the surface. And very often that's where you find fiction and drama and poetry. It's in just at the level beneath what's been presented in the exchange. And if you can tune into that, it's a very useful place to be as a writer of fiction. I believe if you can be really good at something like dialogue, if you work really hard, you can be potentially great at it. So I will literally have, when a stretch of dialogue shows up in my books, I will literally have gone through it over 50 or 60 drafts, very often aloud with pen in hand as I read the text from a printout. So it's just kind of grim, constant repetition, just going through a piece of dialogue or a piece of prose in all your possible moods, and if it's surviving all of your possible moods, it's fine, it's good, it's weird. I think every writer has the experience of reading something that she's written or he has written in the morning and thinking it was heaven sent genius, and reading it at sort of that same night, that same evening, and it just seems like drivel, it's just a case of being dogmatic and going back and looking at your own work in many different moods and in different times of the day and night and of the year, and just figuring out, is it there yet? But it's again, it goes back to the year and listening to it, and there's kind of a weird thing that happens sometimes. You write a sentence and you just know it has the correct kind of note or tune, and you can use it for the entire project, for the entire novel or story or whatever it is. It's like a tuning fork. I'll often hit on a sentence unexpectedly and just go, yeah, that's it. That's the story there. And I'll like write down that sentence and pin it over the desk, and go, that's it. That's the one. It was strange when I was writing Nightboat to Tangier. I was writing a very kind of quiet scene one morning. It was just Morris's wife, his late wife, was conversing with their daughter over coffee in a gallery cafe in the city of Cork, and the young girl said to her, "Did you ever see them violent? Did you ever see the men violent?" And it was just a kind of a quiet, kind of a nothing scene. But on that, when I was writing it, the book came to life for me fully. I could kind of, I said to myself, now it's becoming real. Now it's a real thing. And it's weird. You can hit on these sentences or the paragraph that just works as this tuning fork for the whole story, and cut it out and pin it over the desk, and you can always refer to it then, and use it just to kind of get a kind of a coherence or purity into the work. I think with fiction, you're more likely to by the nature of it, to allow your kind of subconscious mind to come into it and to dictate it and to color it more. So it comes from kind of a purer place in some kind of way. I think it's easy to kind of affect poses when you're writing non-fiction, to affect wisdom or cool or poise or something. Whereas when you're writing good old messy fiction, all your kind of horrendous stuff comes out and that shows up on the page, and you can't hide from it. And that's what makes it a beautiful thing as well. That you can't kind of you can't disguise the wellspring that's feeding this stuff. It's all your own kind of crazy shit and dark stuff that comes out when you try to tell a story. A really bad, cheap tattoo that I got in 1993 in Cork City. It was supposed to be a kind of, I don't know, it was supposed to be some sort of a star and an arrow kind of thing. It was like an old mod symbol from the scooter boy movement, and that was very big in Ireland in the kind of 80s and 90s. Were there mods in the US?
I mean, I know Quadrophenia and
that kind of thing. It was supposed to be something like that, and it didn't really work out. I do actually write lots of quite close physical description of what characters are wearing, what way they're presenting themselves in the world. Because again, you get an awful lot about someone's soul and someone's inner kind of turmoil by what way they decide to display themselves and to show themselves. I don't know what this says about me, really. Only that I was a kind of that I wasn't maybe the wisest 23-year-old.